Congress. I want to bring in one of those Congress members, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington State. He is the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman. First, just how confident are you that this conflict between Iran and Israel isn't going to spiral further?
I'm not confident at all. I think we're in a very dangerous situation. But step one for Congress is to pass the aid package, the supplemental that the Senate passed, gosh, a couple of months ago now, and that the House has been dragging their feet on, which supports Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. I know the former President Trump is running around saying, oh, none of this would have happened if I wasn't in charge. But he is the one who has stopped Congress from passing the aid bill that has made us look weak to Putin and Iran and China, all of whom are working together, by the way. So message number one for the House and the House Republicans and for Speaker Mike Johnson, put the Senate bill on the floor, give us a vote so we can support our allies in Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan who are so under threat right now.
What if he only puts funding for Israel on the floor?
Well, here's the problem with that. The Senate has passed the broader package. If we vote in the House to pass the Senate package, it goes right to the president and it's done. Whatever he puts up on Israel would have to go back to the Senate. And that's a very controversial situation right now. And I think we all know how the Senate works. In one word, slowly. It would take a lot of time, and there would be some question as to what it looks like. So I hope that House Republicans don't screw around with politics and partisanship on this and give us the vote on the Senate bill that will go right to the president and will get the support to our allies that we need.
If he puts a standalone Israel aid bill on the floor, would you vote for that?
Depends on what it is. The standalone Israel aid bill, they put two of them on already, which did not contain any humanitarian assistance. And look, the humanitarian crisis that's going on in Gaza right now is significantly undermining Israel's ability to protect itself. Humanitarian assistance has to be part of that package. So, but again, going down that road is the road to nowhere, given how long it would take to then move it through the Senate and move forward when we have a vehicle right in front of us that has been sitting in the House for, as I said, 2 months now, that we could pass that would directly get assistance to all of the partners who need our assistance right now.
An Israeli official tells NBC News that Israel will respond to Iran's attack. No final decisions have been made on the size or the timing of this response. But what do you think Israel should do in this moment, and what should the U.S. do?
Look, I think that's a very dangerous decision by Israel. Now, understand, this didn't just start with the April 1st attack in Syria that Iran says that they are responding to. Iran has been backing various proxies that threaten and attack Israel for a long time. And that's what Israel was doing when they did that strike in Syria. This is a long-going back and forth. Now, we'd all like to live in a world where Iran just disappeared as a threat. But that's not on the table. What Israel needs is some basic security, and the biggest thing they need is security from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is not excited about getting into a war with Israel. There is the possibility of negotiating an outcome, but if there is a constant escalation, and I hear the argument, I guess John Bolton's the one making the argument most vocally now, they only respond to strength. You must escalate. Well, if both sides have that viewpoint, there is no end to the escalation. And Iran is not some weak backward power. They have missiles, they have allies, they have drones. We got to deal with the world as it is, not as we would imagine it to be. So I hope Israel will look for a way to de-escalate and get to peace, because they're in a very dangerous neighborhood with a lot of people threatening their existence. If they choose to fight them all at the same time, that puts them in considerable danger.
In terms of a U.S. response against Iran, your Republican colleague, Intel Committee Chair Congressman Mike Turner, talked about red lines. Take a listen.
I don't think at this point that the United States should be engaged in a military action directly at Iran. But I do believe that if this administration fails to step up to the plate and understand that we have an escalating conflict and make it clear to Iran that there are red lines and that the United States will defend Israel and will not allow Iran to become a weapon state, that we will be in a broader conflict and we will have less options.
Congressman, do you agree?
I think we've already made that clear. I mean, we had the attacks that Iran was launching through their proxies in Iraq and Syria. We responded very aggressively against those, and those attacks stopped. We also, it's worth noting, negotiated a deal so that Iran would not build a nuclear weapon, a deal that Donald Trump tore up. And now we've got Republicans telling us, oh, my goodness, Iran might get a nuclear weapon. Well, we came up with a way to block that path that they chose to walk away from. So I think the Biden administration is already doing what Congressman Turner has said in making those red lines clear while not stumbling in to a direct conflict with Iran, as even Congressman Turner said we should not do.
But what are those red lines? I don't know if those red lines are clear to the American people.
Yeah, well, of course not. It's an incredibly complicated topic. It's not something you're just going to pick up from reading a couple of newspaper articles. Iran has proxies all over the place. And number one, you need to be careful about drawing too many red lines. But I already told you what one of them was. When the Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria attacked a U.S. military base and killed 3 military personnel, that was an absolute red line. So I think that is very clear to Iran, even in Iran's response. Look, Hezbollah has tens of thousands of missiles right on Israel's border. If Iran had wanted to, they could have launched all of that. And there's no way Israel would have been able to stop that. The casualties would have been tremendous and the war would have exploded. They chose not to do that. So don't underestimate that the Biden administration is having these conversations, in many cases with Iran and with others, to make it clear how not to escalate this conflict.
Congressman Adam Smith, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.